Get ready for an uplifting experience with Coached Soul. Join us as we bring you the dynamic duo of Steve Hudgens, a licensed professional counselor, and Kenya Evelyn, a transformational leadership coach. Together, they'll guide you through engaging episodes filled with valuable insights and actionable tips on mental health, relationships, self-care, emotional well-being, and personal growth. Coached Soul is your go-to podcast for empowering discussions that will help you thrive. So let's get started and welcome our hosts, Steve and Kenya.
It is time, Kenya. It's just hot, but it's August. Back to school started. Everybody's back to school. Are we back into the norm of things? I mean, it's 9 months of kids going to school like pregnancy. You got your birthing pains.
I'll tell you what, normal is one of the words that don't land for me, because what is normal, right? We have the normal of today, and then the next day, even though the schedule is back, now I have kids in high school. And dear listeners as well, maybe yesterday your kid was pre-K, now it's kindergarten, or now you're middle school. I mean, we're always changing and we get to adapt. That's the invitation of today, to adapt, adjust, shift. That's the norm, in my opinion.
As I say in my counseling session, what's normal? Normal is the only setting in the dryer, and that's the only thing that I know.
That's so funny.
So, it's we're all unique individuals.
There we go.
That have different perspectives. And the key, I believe, is how do we hold safe space when we show up in our relationships from one another?
Beautiful.
Because we're each unique. And so I believe having an open mind is crucial to the success of a relationship, because it invites communication.
100%. 100%. Well, if and when I don't have an open mind, I will be always assuming according with how I am feeling, right? And I wanted to really think, dear listeners, I wanted to really think about what I just said. When you're feeling good, it's like the world is smiling at you, right? You're walking and you notice the birds, you notice the butterflies, you notice text messages. They're telling you, so great to see you yesterday. And when you're not feeling well, maybe it's a bad night of sleep, or maybe you felt drained, or maybe you're worried, or maybe it's the bills, and then more bills shows up. How is that? When you're not, when your jeans don't fit you, right? And you got a little trigger because, I really wanted to wear these jeans today and didn't button. We are always receiving information from the world about our state of being. And who gives more information than anybody else is our mate.
Correct. And that's in marriage or relationships, that's within families. It's communication.
Yeah.
So, we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about off mic about our topic, and here's the thing, listeners. Kenya and I do not rehearse. This is a natural aspect of what the fluid, the transparency that Kenya and I have together.
Yes.
Due to the fact that we're both professionals in our field, and we want to present a unique perspective for our listeners. And so we want to talk a little bit about showing up in a relationship, in a marriage specifically. So what do you mean by showing up? I mean, is that like a wedding day and the bride doesn't show up and she runs away? What do we mean by showing up, Kenya?
See, I just love your question, Steve, because what you describe is there's a perception of showing up that is, ta-da, I'm here.
Right.
And keep the word in front of your computer in front of your cell phone because it's all about perception.
Mm-hmm.
We started this podcast talking about what I am emanating as a human being I'm going to see in the world. So when I am in my marriage, when I'm showing up in my marriage, my perspective is I want this to last. My intention is, you know what? To death do us part sounds like that is like the ultimate goal. Why would I want to start again with someone else? If I'm the common denominator, which I know that I know that I know that I am, if I don't find a way to show up as Kenya, as me, free, expensive, fun, and grieving and sad and angry, all the emotions. If I don't find a way to feel that I am welcome with all my ways, in all my ways, I'm going to bring this to another marriage, to another dating, to another. I'll keep repeating. So I'm not saying, again, my beloved listeners, this does not apply for abusive relationship. If you're in any kind of abusive relationship, raise your hand. You're not going to say, this is me. And I'm going to open a parenthesis here. It's you in the sense that if you grew up with abuse, you attracted abuse because abuse was home. It doesn't make it right.
Right.
Nothing is right. So raise your hand, get help, get out, and come back to us so we can nurture and help you heal the wound that is making you keep attracting abusive relationships. So in a way, it is you, but it's not you. Does it make sense? Please tell me that it makes sense.
Yeah, what you're describing is what I call trauma bonding. And
Correct.
trauma bonding is that psychological phenomenon that occurs when the individuals form an emotional attachment to the partner, despite experiencing abuse, manipulation, or other forms of trauma. The
Yes.
thing is, the bond becomes particularly strong in marriages or intimate partnerships where the cycles of abuse, emotional, physical, psychological, are present. Well, it's like a lot of people don't understand, I love this person, but the question becomes, what is the characteristics of trauma bonding in marriage? And
Well, in my opinion, in marriage, because I have a lot of people that come to me and say, well, when it wasn't like that before we got married.
yes,
It got worse.
right.
I'm going to raise my hand and explain my theory, energetic theory. There actually something to be said about the contract itself. Like, oh, it's just a paperwork. No, it's not. It almost gives, for the abuser, if you will, it gives this ownership that cements the energetic, like, you're mine, or I am. It gives them more legitimacy to spread and deepen the abuse. And in a way, because you signed the paper, it's like you signed that you're okay with it. And it all subconscious. It's all subconscious. But it does get worse for sure. Or everybody gets help, because what I have found that a lot of people that experience abusive relationship in both realms, the abuser once was a child that was abused too.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? So we all need help. Both parts need help.
Right. And so one of the signs or the key characteristics when you think about this is what we call an intense emotional connection.
Correct.
It's despite the negative experiences, the partners may feel a deep emotional bond. And that's because they share traumatic experiences from the ups and downs of the relationship, which is creating a confusing cycle of love and pain, which leads into the cycle of abuse, because trauma bonding often develops within an environment characterized by a cycle of abuse. In other words, there's periods of abusive behavior
Correct.
Then all of a sudden it's followed by intervals of reconciliation. I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant.
Exactly.
Affection and
Exactly.
remorse. And so
Well, so that
that's
you can keep heading. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. And let me tell you, if whatever, if anything like this, even when you're hearing this and something is landing and it has happened twice, are you waiting for the third time? This is a question, and my invitation for you is don't wait for the third time. And I'm not talking, I'm not being specific here. Excuse me. I'm talking about diminishing self. I'm talking about obviously emotional, spiritually, and physical abuse. It's a cycle doesn't break itself. A
right.
cycle does not break itself. It's not organic. It's your intention, raising your hand and protecting your inner child. Okay, what will your inner child tell you right now? Who needs help? Right? So maybe you are in a 30-year-old body, and a 40-year-old body, and a 50-year-old body, but you're in a child that has been through the trauma or the sets of trauma. If it's not um, um, uh, healed, if it's not addressed, it doesn't address itself. You just perpetuate until you die. Oh, but Kenya, it's in God's hands. God has me, and God has you, and God has all of us, and it's going to be okay. I love you, and I believe in God too. And this has nothing to do with God has you, because your human has access to help,
Right.
and you get to raise your hand and let your voice be heard.
And one of the things about that I want to kind of that I've seen in therapy sessions is a lot, even with my own personal life, is that when there's cycles of abuse, it's typically seen through what we call personality disorders. You have the narcissism, typically in men and women. What I've also found in my research is that it's called borderline personality disorders. 38%
Sure.
of men have
Sure.
borderline tendencies. And so it kind of traits onto the narcissism. But it's basically borderline because when you have substance abuse, risky behaviors like affairs, cheating, and stuff, this becomes more of a borderline trait. And borderlines get things out of they kind of misconstrue their information, and so it's built upon a lot of emotion. And so sometimes, when you think about the cycle of what we're discussing, sometimes it's personality disorders, which becomes a little difficult to try to treat in therapy. So we try to find ways to being able to, how do we communicate? How do we show up in the marriage? How do we show up in the relationship? So that what the problem that I'm seeing, my research and my doctoral
Yes.
program and my dissertation is how to
Sure.
reduce the high divorce rates in blended family. One of the things that I'm seeing is that we're living in a culture that's consumerism.
100%.
If this doesn't work, I'll throw it away, get something different. Well, wait a minute. I'm not loyal to this brand anymore. I'm going to go to this brand. And so we
Ooh.
become dissatisfied, not only with our food or things that we have in our life. I don't like the shoes. I'm going to buy another pair of shoes. We do the same thing in our relationships. It's what I call throwaway.
Yeah.
We're not being intentional about showing up on how to collaborate discussions. Are these discussions difficult? Sometimes they can be. But can they become to where the discussion can be difficult, but also it moves that relationship forward, because growth doesn't happen without difficulty. It's learning how to manage that communication level to reduce that friction, to be able to show up for one another. What are
I
you
found
thinking?
yeah, I find the word that I don't like.
Oh,
We were talking off mic. It's the manage. The word manage does not land for me, and you need to keep using it because you use it in a context that makes sense for you. manage is it doesn't land for me. I the way I really feel everything you just said, and again, I'm a feeler, is that it doesn't matter how many words I use, Steve. If the way I am showing up, and I'm back to that expression of showing up, if the way I am presenting myself and the way I am feeling myself, it's unworthy, it doesn't matter how many words I use, I will come across forceful. I will come across desperate. But if I am showing up as, you know what? This is my spouse. My intention is forever. Forever means every day. I get to show up in a way that motivates him, that inspires him. The heck, I get to show up in a way that it motivates me to keep showing up.
Right.
That motivates me to be, that inspire me to be more present and more feminine and more welcoming and more of me. Dear listeners, I'm not talking about reading a book or let me checklist. It's
right.
the way I am feminine. So I actually feel really good when I am feminine, and I might have my hair up or my hair down, my yoga pant or my dress. It doesn't matter. It's my ways, my beingness is showing up in a way that I get to trust that I am co-creating this life with God. And I am in gratitude because I get to be in this body, in this life right now. Versus, I just can't believe this is Groundhog Day again because he did do this or he didn't do that. And the kids and the dog, This complaining and frustration in my life, and I'm being very raw, Steve knows, it's very much present in one perspective.
Right.
What else is also present in a different perspective? Wow, I have a beautiful home. We're going to be married for 19 years. Wow, I have a home that not just supports us, but everybody has their own bedroom. I can say more things for me to clean, but hey, everybody has their space.
There's two things I want to bring out.
Yes. Yes.
What I'm hearing you say is about being thankful.
For sure.
It's being, when we have the gratitude, and research is showing, the more that we find thankfulness and gratitude, it reduces the anxiety and stress that we feel. So it's an interesting perspective that when we find gratitude, and I'm not saying being in a situation of abuse is being gratitude. There's no gratitude in that.
And I love that you're bringing this up because the exception is that do not keep taking the hurt and the pain that has always been. You get to raise your hand. Listeners, we don't have crystal ball. We don't have your numbers. I mean, text to email us, text back in the podcast comments. I mean, let us know that you need help.
Yeah,
Don't
our
stay
email
in
is
any kind of abuse.
Yeah, email is coach, COACH, with at coached, COACHED, soul, SOUL.com. And so we
Yes.
will love to have our comments and things like that from you. And the other aspect that I want to be able to have some clarity in the word manage. Okay. I use that word because what I hear in marriages is about, how do I control? I've got to control this or it's going to get out of hand. I'm like, wait a minute. Control to me is a very harsh, critical word of a knee-jerk reaction to try to take, to rob, to destroy something. So when I think about control, it's a firefighter that gets a signal that they got to go to a fire. They rush,
control the fire,
knee-jerk, yep, and they go control the fire. When I think about manage, it's about being proactive. It's about being intentional, purposeful, mindful. And sometimes when I look at marriages or relationships, there is no mindfulness that comes into showing up sometimes. We just show up with our full blast hurts, and that's what comes. But when we're mindful and managing, It's about how do I feel? Being proactive. If I'm going to say this, am I going to hurt him or her? It's managing my emotions of, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to put a pause on this argument that's coming up. And so I need to be able to be responsible to say, I need to call a timeout here, but don't dangle the carrot. I was talking
Yes.
to a client the other day and they were saying, well, I was told that calling a 2 hour timeout is abusive. And I'm like, whoa, where's this coming from? Therapy cannot be a cookie cutter approach, at least for me.
Life is not cookie
You're
cutter
right.
approach to
And so
anyone.
each person's different. So when I could take
Mhm.
in consideration, they say, well, one of these theories comes up that says, well, it's abusive. I'm like, no, each person has a different processing speed.
Mhm.
I'm a very fast processor and thinker. And so I have to be mindful that just because I get over something fairly quickly doesn't mean the person I'm dealing with is ready to talk to me.
Mhm.
I've had to learn to be able to allow safe space for that other person. And whoever calls a timeout. So Kenya, you and I are in an argument, and I say, Kenya, I'm not sure we are ready to get into the situation. Let's be mindful of where we are. We need to call a timeout. I need at least a couple hours to process this. And the reason why I say a couple hours, I'm responsible and accountable for the 2 hour time frame, not you. When that 2 hour time frame comes up, I need to say, Kenya, I'm ready if you're ready. Then that's where the playing field opens up. But I'd
Mhm.
say at least 30 minutes. What people don't understand in being mindful in relationships, when things get elevated and heated, it takes approximately 30 minutes. Because when you become angry, we get out of the cognitive side into the fight, flight,
The
freeze.
survival,
The
the survival
survival
brain.
says, okay, let's
Mhm.
pull this blood out. Let's get into the muscle because we're going to flight or we're going to freeze. Or we're going
Are
to
we
fight.
gonna die?
Right. And so the blood leaves, the oxygen leaves, and gets into our muscles. And it takes about 30 minutes for that blood and the oxygen to get back. That's why you hear people
Correct.
say, well, I just black out or rage. Well, that's not possible. Well, you're being logical right now and you're
Mm.
not angry.
Mhm.
But it's unfortunate that people elevate to such a point that's the reason why I say, are we going to be able to manage the situation to where it becomes mindful, not only to self, but to the other person? And I believe that's where you're talking about showing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So thank you for this, Steve. Listeners, the gift of our interaction here is not just that we're female and male, but we have different personalities. Can you hear Steve's personality fits him the word manage because he's analytical. He likes to know. He's a structured guy. He's a military guy. I'm a free spirit. I am Latino. I juggle the work of 10 people. I am everywhere and I'm an artist and I homeschool my 3 kids and I also do the laundry and clean my own house whenever I can. And things are usually not quite in place and all the above. I wanted to bring this rawness to our podcast because I bet that you and your significant other don't have the same personality.
Mm.
So you can look at him and say, "But I wouldn't do it that way," or well, you're not him, and dude, you're not her.
Right.
So if just for one moment, by the way, if my husband say, "Hey, we'll come back in 30 minutes," this doesn't land for me, this language. "Hey, come back in 2 hours." It doesn't, because I have no sense of time, like literally. I have no sense of time. If I want to record this podcast on time, which I do most of the times, I put a ring. So my cell phone tells me, ooh, 15 minutes for Steve. I use my cell phone to keep me on track, so I show up in the world the way that is integrity and commitment and but it's not my personality. And I'm 46 years old. For the longest time, I judged myself. I wish I would be more like Steve. I wish I would be like more like my sister. She's a doctor. I wish I would be more like, so this has nothing to do with Kenya, it has to do with you. I want you to look at yourself and your personality, your sets of skills, your dreams, your desires, the way you feel good about yourself, the way you want to show up in your relationship as you, not the way he wants you to show up, not the way you think that your neighbor shows up and she has such a good marriage, you wish you would have it like her. The way for you to have a great marriage is for you to show up like you, zero judgment.
Right.
We're all working on things. We're all working on whatever it is, our communication skills, our time, our organization, our finances, but let me bring down to one topic right here. Everybody take a breath. Here's how you know you're showing up as you. When you can feel your heartbeat and you go to your kitchen or to the car and you give yourself the space to say, you know what? I'm feeling my energy rising right now. And I actually did not hear anything that you just said. And you can be honest. When you know you can tell the truth, you know you're showing up like yourself. Or you can say, hey, I am so happy and I really want to share this celebration piece with you. Do you have a minute to sit down or to give me eye contact right now and be present? When you can show up speaking truth about your needs, you're showing up like yourself. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you have no sense of time. Like, hey, but you know what anger feels like in your body. And if you don't know how anger feels like in your body, that's your homework. It's part of mastering that part of you of, this is how I feel when I'm frustrated. Oh, I tell you, when I am angry, I start cleaning. like, and it's psychologically, there's studies about that, Steve.
Yes, there
because
is.
I just go into whatever hypnotic state thing that I can see things clean and I think things organized, like it's my need of control. I can't control anything, but I know I can clean the floor, like it's nobody's business, you know? So it's okay. I channel to something productive. I will not punch someone. I will not say things that I would regret.
You know, Kenya, I hate to do this because we're on a roll.
It's okay.
We're
got
going to
another
do
one.
part 2 coming up of showing up. And I want to kind of give an analogy about showing up and what does that look like in the relationship. I'm not going to do it right now. Sorry to put you on the edge of your seat. So until next time, take care and God bless.
Love you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Coached Soul, where we aim to empower and uplift you on your journey towards personal growth and well-being. Remember, as you navigate through life, you don't have to do it alone. We encourage you to reach out to professionals, seek support from loved ones, and take the time to prioritize your own well-being. Stay tuned for future episodes filled with even more valuable insights and actionable tips. Remember, you have the power to thrive. And with Coached Soul by your side, anything is possible. Until next time, take care, stay empowered, and keep shining your brightest light.